Breaking it all down, Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump outlining his plan to boost the economy yesterday. He says we must change our current way of thinking. Watch.
It's time to start thinking big once again. That's why I believe it's time to establish a national goal of reaching 4% economic growth. We put together a plan that puts us on track to achieve that goal. Over the next 10 years, our economic team estimates that under our plan, the economy will average 3.5% growth and create a total of 25 million new jobs.
Sounds good. Let's bring in Peter Kiernan right now. He's a former partner at Goldman Sachs. He is author of American Mojo. He also supports Donald Trump. Peter, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Again. Thanks.
So what do you think about overall this economic plan?
Well, it's fascinating to see how Donald Trump has matured. This is really his third plan, and he's come a lot closer to focusing on what we should be doing for business investment, keeping business here, and skewing away from being so generous to the 1% and more towards the middle class.
Yeah, I mean, do you believe that we can see 3.5% to 4% growth in the economy under this plan?
Well, in the last 15 years, we haven't done that too many times. I would say that this is an aspirational goal. I do think what this does is it puts business to work, and it really does encourage, particularly small business, to invest. And I like that. That's been a recalcitrance in the market so far. And if we can get business to invest and hire, we're on the right track.
Kevin Kelly, 15% corporate tax rate.
Yeah, that's a great corporate tax rate, especially because he wants to bring over a lot of the funds from overseas, and that was a big talking point. He was talking about taxing that money at 10%. What I would like to see him do is actually peg that towards a jobs number or have some kind of stipulations about it for bringing it over. But what's interesting about Donald Trump is he's talking about free trade a lot, and free trade is the movement of goods and services without terms, restrictions, or conditions. And he's attacking NAFTA, which has those type of things. So I'm curious to get your take on what you think about some of his trade policies are, because he seems to make him want more fair. We've had Wilbur Ross on the show talking about a look-back period. What is your take on his trade policies?
Honestly, if there's any place where Donald Trump risks being all wet, it's in the trade area. You know, his talk about China is really great for headlines. But there's no economic outcome for us that's good, no economic outcome for the middle class that's good without a strong relationship with China. It wasn't too long ago where General Motors sold more cars in China than it did in the United States. They sell about 2.3 million cars in China. Anything we do has to have a good, strong, healthy dialogue, debate, discourse, but China's got to be a part of our future.
Even more than China, he really is upset with NAFTA. He thinks NAFTA has been a failure, and it sounds like he's going to be aggressive in terms of redoing that. Look, I get you on the concern in terms of disruption over trade, and are we going to see tariffs? That would certainly be a negative. But it seems to me that what he's really pushing is any bad deal and making it better. He's saying he's a negotiator, he's a deal guy. Maybe we could actually get a better hand on these deals.
Well, I'll cop to that. I actually think that what he can do is take an outrageous statement and back it down.
Yes, that's what I think
if it's a negotiation. If that's where we are, that's terrific. What troubles me is that when you have the concept of 35% tariffs as a weapon, that's a bat you keep beside you. You don't take it out.
But he didn't say that. He didn't say 35% yesterday.
No, and I think that's what's so encouraging, that speech yesterday and really lately, he has not talked about a big tariff on Chinese goods coming in. Right. He has not talked about huge tariff on Ford when they build in Mexico and bring a car into the United States. What he was talking about yesterday was really enforcing existing laws, bringing WTO cases where China is cheating. I think for a lot of people who've been worried that he's going to start some kind of a trade war, I thought that was maybe reassuring some people in that audience. Now, certainly they were not big on the trade message. I'm not either. The big applause line was the 15% corporate tax rate, but I think
well, that's the cornerstone of the tax plan, 15% corporate tax rate.
No question. And I sit on boards, and when you're sitting there in a fiduciary role, it's almost impossible when you're making a 35% tax payment to look at 15% and not say, this is really a great way to improve our business, and it'll induce us to stay here.
And I think that's where that 4% economic growth goal, maybe it is reasonable, because you think about U.S. corporate taxes going from the highest in the industrialized world to among the lowest. We're still not at Ireland's 12.5%, even if we get his 15, but we're highly, highly competitive. So we could grow
I think the
fast.
question really, though, is how quickly can that economic growth happen? I mean, so much of this plan depends on that economic growth and the turnaround, but how fast is realistic?
Well, there's no question that what he put forth was a real assumption sandwich, right? There's a lot of assumptions in there. I think if we can do the small business piece of this right away, where you can have pass-through, where small businesses are paying 15%. I think they're going to hire and invest right away. That's a cradle of job creation. If you can get small business really cranking, this could happen much quicker than we think.
Part of the cornerstone, and you can get to that 4% that we're talking about, is when you end crony capitalism and when special interests are able to push legislation in their favor, and it hurts the small businesses that we're talking about because they've got to navigate that red tape.
Even more than taxes is this regulatory burden that he was talking about yesterday. I was struck by something he said. He said, when I speak to business people, they are more interested in rolling back regulations than they are actually in getting better taxes. Businesses, big and small, complain about the regulatory environment. He wants to roll back things like Obamacare, Dodd-Frank. The EPA obviously has had a huge number of new rules, and that has hurt a number of industries. The EPA rules.
Listen, I think every state, every municipality ought to have a Department of Regulatory Sanity. Okay, we've let ourselves get away. There are too many obstructions to growth, too many obstacles to progress, and they all lie in regulations that are dated, ancient, and need to be changed.
And you can't find someone in Congress that read the entire Dodd-Frank Act, someone that read the entire ACA. It is laden with special interests. You've talked about it, the Selectorate, right, in your book. I think if you look at Dodd-Frank, over 22,000 pages of regulatory reform came out of that. Who can navigate that? Certainly not small businesses.
And yesterday he said that Obama put in place 3,300 new rules just this year. I mean, that's how many new rules we've seen. So the economic plan, in a nutshell: number one, tax reform; number two, regulatory reform, scaling back regs; number three, tapping into the energy space; and number four, redoing trade deals that are not advantageous to America. That's the plan in a nutshell.
I might add one thing. I think he's being really much more mature and sophisticated and centrist about helping working women, about helping families, particularly working families. I think you put that all together, it's a winning plan.
All right, we'll leave it there. Peter, good to see you.
Thanks. If you want to muss my hair, you can.
Okay, I'll take a pass. Thank you so much. Actually, what did you think about that? I mean, it shows humility.
He's a showman, and I think that's one of the things Hillary Clinton should watch out for. He's very good in front of the TV, and debates are TV news, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think that you're right, because he was himself and
he's
humble.
Relatable, she isn't.
Yeah, that's
I actually like his hair that way.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump will join us live right here at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, so we'll ask him about that.